Yeah. Jerome has been spreading his wings far and wide to different universes, creating his own universes. Book by book, breath by breath.
That's the slogan. That's the slogan right there. Can we write that down? Let's write that down. Book by book, breath by breath, by Celeste. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Trailblazing through them.
Breath by
Our
breath.
last,
You
yeah.
know, one breath at a time. Yeah.
Our last interview, you had done published 7 books in 3 months, and now these last 3 months, since end of October, you've published 5 and counting. It's pretty impressive.
You know, I don't really see it as impressive as other people do, but like I said last time, you know, I'm kind of like, I'm very inspired, you know, just very inspired. And one of the people that I've admired, Dr. Wayne Dyer, you know, if you've ever heard of Dr. Wayne Dyer, he's someone I admired when he talked about the feeling of being inspired. And he said that to be inspired is to be in spirit.
Mm.
So you let people hear it when you reside within spirit, you know?
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between kind of forcing that and going for accomplishments versus feeling inspired and being in spirit? Like, can you talk about the difference in that energy?
Yeah. So, you know, Shui Ming is one of the characters from the fictional books in the fictional universe. And he talks to Oren about Wu Wei. And Wu Wei, I got this, you know, Wu Wei is definitely, it feels like it's a discipline, but it's also a detachment. It's like on the one hand, Wu Wei, effortless action, you know, that when nothing is done, nothing is left undone. So it's an effortless action. You're not forcing, you're flowing, right? It's not a forced journey, it's a flow journey. So Shui Ming was talking in the book about Wu Wei, and it's a discipline of detachment. So it's kind of like a paradox. It's paradoxical. But like Lao Tzu, people, when I read the Tao Te Ching, it was talking about, you know, the way to go forward. The way forward seems to go back. You know, the straight path seems crooked. You know, true wisdom seems childish. We slow down to speed up. So by slowing down, yeah, there you go. There you go. Just like that, right? You got to stay heavily meditated so you're not heavily medicated, right? I mean, there were times where I was heavily medicated, you know, when it came to Adderall and energy drinks and just there was no end. But when you're living on your own energy and you're fueled by another source, you know, you work with that. You work with that. So the difference, I would say, instead of forcing and trying to control, you surrender and you allow. You know, the person that's swimming in the ocean, they're afraid that they might drown. You know, that's the doer. The philosophy of the doer is like, if I don't swim, I'll drown. So I got to keep swimming, right? If I don't succeed, I'll fail. So I got to keep winning. I got to keep swimming. But then, you know, the surrendered, as we know from the Pasana, and just, you know, you float. You stop swimming and you float. You realize you're not going to sink. You're not going to drown. You let go. There's abundance around, you know? So yeah, that's the process that I use now is, you know, how can I let go even more, you know, to explore even more? What can I let go of that's holding me back? Yeah.
I feel like when you're in the ocean and you're floating, there's a moment where you just feel excited to swim. Like there's a wave and you're excited to swim, and I feel like that's what I see in you when you write. It's like you're just excited to ride the waves of this book or this new story.
Yeah.
and just like ride in low key tsunamis, but you ride in.
I get carried away. I get carried away for sure. It carries me away, I'm telling you. Yeah.
Our last interview, you were just about to publish the Ethereans, the cyberpunk world, and then after that, you started the Breatharian books. Are those two connected in any way? Are they two different universes, or can you go into a little detail about those two?
Yeah, so it's all in the same universe. So the Solarian series and the Breatharian series, it's actually all in the same universe. You could call it like the solar verse, but it's there for people who kind of see, it's like little Easter eggs, little little nuggets, little Easter eggs, little cameos, little drops, little sprinkles of people that you've seen in other books. So throughout the whole series, it's like a web that's interconnected, or like they're all branches on the same tree, you know? So yeah, each of the book is like a branch on the limb of the same tree. They're all from the same tree. So yeah, they're in the same universe for sure. And I love it that way because it just reminds me of people like Stephen King and people like even in the movie industry, the film industry, M. Night Shyamalan, and like how they can have standalone films and movies, but like still have characters that are in that same universe. I'm fascinated by that. So I wanted to do that, and that's what we call it. Yeah.
And how are let's see, you have the Ethereans after the Solarian series, and then three Breatharian books: the Breatharian at the Banquet, Famine and Flame, and Ashes and Air.
Hmm.
Will you tell us a little bit about the Breatharian at the Banquet?
Yeah, so the Breatharian at the Banquet is definitely one of them dark books. They each of them have a hint of darkness, but some of them get progressively darker. So there's always the light. The light is always there. There's characters that shine the light, there's characters that embody the light. But then there's aspects of our humanity that we witness the self-sabotage, the guilt, the shame, the blame, the envy, the jealousy, the hate, the greed, the grudges, the just all of the shadow work, the things that happen in the dark, they come out into the light. So Breatharian at the Banquet, the elegy of appetite, oh my God, that one was definitely dark when it comes to decadence, when it comes to indulgence, when it comes to the hedonistic living for pleasure alone, like living for nothing but pleasure alone, just for taste, for texture, for flavor, for touch, for just pleasing the senses. And just really diving deep in the denseness. That book is very dense when it comes through everybody just indulging the senses, just pleasing. How can I just have pleasure? It doesn't matter the measure, just finding treasure in pleasure. That's what the central characters in that book find at the banquet. And one of the characters, he does the opposite. He's the one, while everybody's going to the left, he's going to the right. Yeah.
Would you say that you can relate to any specific character more
Yeah.
than the others?
I relate to all of them in a certain way. I relate to all of them because they're aspects of our humanity. The pleasure seeking, the need for approval, not feeling enough, the not enoughness, the lack of self-worthiness, the self-esteem, the self-confidence, the self, just the self. And doing all these things with everyone else, but avoiding the self, right? Putting aside your mental health, avoiding the self, you know, putting things on the back burner, putting your life on the shelf, avoiding the health and avoiding the self. So these are aspects of humanity. These are aspects of myself that I'm writing. But what's so inviting is that you get to expand on it. You get to really flesh out these ideas and take an observer, take a character who's a fly on the wall, and they get to witness it all. And they get to witness the rise and they witnessed the fall of all of these characters. So, I mean, I was just maniacal. I was just like, just typing, just, I was like, oh my God, just what's going to happen next? And oh man, it's really awesome once you get into a flow state and you realize that, you know what, everybody's doing their best. How can we learn from other people, even if they're a fictional character? In my life, I've read tons and tons of fictional novels, and I gotta say that I've learned quite a lot from characters that don't actually exist, but came from somebody's mind. I was able to see this person and just empathize with what they were going through, even though they weren't real. Like I could feel that, you know? And then I could take that and apply it to my life and things could shift, So it was quite the gift to receive a lot of fictional books, Harry Potter series, The Unfortunate Events, Lemony Snicket, like reading all of these books when I was growing up. I had no idea that I'd be writing my own, but here we are, you know? So yeah, definitely I see a lot of myself in these characters because like George R. R. Martin said, he's the author of the Game of Thrones series. He said, you write what you know,
Mhm.
write what you know. So that's one of the things that makes it easy when you're channeling these things, because these are things you've handled. You've had to handle it inside yourself, so you're channeling it for someone else. Yeah.
What's interesting is too when you write it and you know it, and in the process of writing it, you're teaching it in a digestible, fun way, which is a form like the path to. Oops, there we go. Can you see me? Okay. Um, the path to self mastery, like to teach it. That's like the last step, I guess, to be able to teach it. Like you can know and know and know, but to be able to share it with others is another way of knowing and being, a way to embody it in a different way. And I like that you talked about being connected to imaginary characters. It almost takes away that emotional charge, as if you were like to talk to, let's say, your mom or your dad. I always use the swim instructor example. Sometimes people or children, it's easier for children to learn from somebody else than their parents, depending on their relationship with their parents, because it's somebody else. There's less emotional charge. And so, like reading these books, I can imagine as a fictional character, there's a little bit less emotional charge. But ironically, like then you get invested, and then there becomes this emotional charge, and then it's reflecting back to you such human, relatable characteristics. So I love that you're able to share that, like, no, I see a little bit of myself in every single character, because we're all so multifaceted. And I feel like also talking about it and sharing it in this way releases shame about it. Sometimes, especially with social media, we see these, like, for example, like you publish all these books and it's like, oh wow, he's done so much, and it looks like on paper it's like, wow, it's so easy, but it's like in reality, like there's so much that goes behind that. There's a whole universe going on, and here you're so human and you're talking about the humanness. So it's beautiful that you're able to acknowledge that, like, yes, I've see all these aspects of myself in each character. And I like the fly on the wall aspect. I feel like that's your higher self. It's the one observing it all. It's like, oh, you human?
Yeah,
You cute little human?
yeah, the untethered soul, Yeah, the observer for sure, the one who watches. And thank you for that, reflection and that connection, Celeste, because you're absolutely right. The teacher, I feel the teacher is always, even more blessed because you get to learn it twice. When you learn something, you learn it once. When you teach it, you learn it twice. So it just further ingrains it. It further maintains it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are any of these characters going into the next book, or are they a little bit more separate?
Yeah. So throughout each of the book, there's sprinkles. There's little like hints. I like little asides and sometimes little interludes where you'll come across a character and you're rewarded. I like to put in rewards, Easter eggs for people who have read from the beginning and like followed the journey of books. That if they meet a character in a way later book, they're like, wait a minute. you know, like this, they were from that one, you know? So I like that revelation moment where, you know, your eyes start to open wide when you realize this was one of your beloved characters that you might have had from another book in the series that you had no idea that they were actually linked, that they were in the same, you know, solar verse as it was, you know, the solar verse with the Solarians and the Breatharians. So I love these little surprises, you know, these things to just bring out the nuance in different characters and characters from the past that have learned these lessons coming back to future characters who are earning these lessons, you know, they're teaching them things that they've already, you know, acquired. So they can lift them up and bring them even higher. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to spoil the surprise of who's going where and when. So,
So like little things like in Famine and Flame, there's a whole world set up. That's like my take on Game of Thrones. So that's Famine and Flame is like my shout out to George R. R. Martin and just the I mean, you know, the machinations, the Machiavellianism, like just like this whole world, and then there's all these things going on in the church, in the village, in the convent, and the nuns, and the citizens, and you know the people, and then you know these higher ups and these classes in society, and everybody's got like an idea, and you're just handling all these characters. But then they have things that they might recite, like the nuns in the convent. You know, they're very, you know, mystical. Like they have there's a slight mysticism to what they do and how they're able to manipulate the fabric of reality. And that quality that they use, what they learn in that school, it's implemented by other characters throughout the series. But it's shown in a way that's not in your face. It's very subtle. It's very subtle. So you can say, oh, this comes from that. Oh, they're reading that book. That book came from there, right? So like this was the time. It's like being passed through generation to generation. You're seeing something that came from ages ago, but somehow ended up in someone's hands, and you're like, ah, you know, I see now. So it makes sense once you read throughout. And I mean, I love for people to get their hands on it. It's a surreal feeling when I see somebody holding one of these books, because I know like a lot of energy, a lot of love, and just a lot of thought power went into that. You know, now I understand what these people go through, you know, to make these works. So yeah.
I definitely can relate to that. New respect. Once you do it yourself, you're like, wow, this is a whole other world.
Tons of
A lot of
respect.
dedication, heart, blood, sweat, tears, etc. Just soul. Curious what the theme is of this one. You say that like the first one was talking about the indulgence and the decadence of eating, and then one person kind of choosing differently
Right.
and seeing what happens with the different choices. And then this one, there's one person or a group of people that have access to ancient knowledge, and they learn how to use it and spread it. Can you go into a little bit more detail about that main character and what they learn?
Right. So the banquet, the Breatharian at the banquet, that one was like a Greek tragedy.
Mm.
So it already says it, you know, in the summary, like spoiler alert, but that one's just it's not painting a pretty picture, but it's just it's a rude awakening. It's letting people know the reality. Then in Famine and Flame, that's more of a historical fiction. So it's a historical piece back in a different area and a different era of time, and it's people in these villages like kind of think maybe 17th century Europe, and like this European, you know, place that there's a portion of it is just these people that are experiencing great famine, great loss. You know, people are dying, people are trying to grow things that aren't growing. The rain is not coming, so the flower is not flowing, you know. So they latch on to something to believe in. They need to have faith. You know, they need to find faith somewhere. And there's an establishment called the church, you know, the citadel. There's the order, right? But they're burning people who don't adhere to their doctrine. So they're burning and they're you know, people are burning at the stake, they're burning down villages, they're pillaging, they're really just raiding these places if they don't adhere to their doctrine. Then on the low end, undercover, low on the radar, there's people that worship or that follow, you know, these forgotten saints. And the forgotten saints are like this old mythology from like these ancient ones. And they worship the holy ones and the ancient ones, and they're like, please give me strength, help me endure. So Famine and Flame is really all about endurance, you know, endurance, resilience, discovering your brilliance, and just really just finding resourcefulness when you don't see the resources, you know, really finding the willpower when everyone's will is dying, you know. So that one is really just reaching deep down and discovering something that was already there, but really pulling it out of you. And sometimes you need someone to believe in you until your belief kicks in. And that's what they do for the main character, who is Tessara in that book. She's the main character. She's a healer of Braith Village, the Breatharian from Braith. And certain things happen in the village. Of course, there's just a lot of suffering, but she's not suffering. She's like the only one, she's not suffering. She's the healer. She's helping people heal, but as they look at her, she's strong. She's not withering away, and she's not eating. She's not drinking. And so they're kind of scratching their heads. They're kind of rubbing their chin. They're kind of wondering, what's going on? Like, what is she about? She doesn't eat. How is that possible? We're not eating. We're dying. She's not eating. She's flying, right? So that dichotomy is there, and that is kind of something that kind of separates her from the others and leads to a lot of misunderstanding. And when certain elements happen to the village and she has to go away, that's what starts the whole rest of the journey. And it becomes like an epic, you know. That was the longest book I've written so far, was Famine and Flame. That's been the longest one. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't write. Oh, yes, I did. Yeah, 464 pages, Jerome. Jeez.
You wrote down how many?
I did. I was like, wait a second. I wrote down the page numbers for the last couple books, and I was like, wow, these aren't short books. It's like 200, 464, 207.
Yeah. That was the longest. That was the longest
weeks.
One. Yeah, I couldn't stop. Yeah, yeah.
Would you touch on your journey a little bit about tapping into that unseen faith? Because you're talking about this main character being able to worship the unseen, basically. Yeah. Like, you know, when even with chaos going on around you, like to be able to just believe in yourself, and also having somebody else believe in you so much that you can believe in yourself. Can you touch on those two aspects of, like, one kind of ancestral work in a way, like God or, you know, source, higher power, and then also to the benefits of having a mentor and like how that's impacted your writing process?
Absolutely. You know, I was raised in the church. So I was raised, you know, we would say our grace at the table, we would pray, we would kiss it up to God, you know, kiss the germs up to God. If it fell on the floor, we kiss the germs up to God, you know. And so I would pray before I went to sleep. I'd pray when I woke up, and I'd pray before I ate. At a certain point in my life, you know, I stopped praying the way that I used to, and I stopped going to church, and it had a different meaning for me. It kind of changed over the years. And just like one of the books I wrote, you know, Psychology of the Soul, the character Eleanor, she's believing in something that is irrational. You know, her logical mind, she's a psychologist. So these people who seem to be feeding off the sun, like their solar energy is coming into the vessel, they're letting go of everything, they're not having to wrestle, you know? All this pranic energy is coming from somewhere, and they feel their hunger is diminishing, their stress is diminishing, all of everything that all the frustration is leaving, you know, and they feel better than they've ever felt in years. And they're looking to the sun, this star in the distance, and that's their salvation, right? That's the vibration that's coming into them. And it's, for her, it's very irrational. So when I had a mentor, you know, Elitam Elamin, when I did my first pranic retreat back in 2020, this was in January. For the common person out there, right around, you know, COVID time, the pandemic time, this was very irrational. You know, everybody was wearing masks. Us at the retreat, we weren't wearing any masks. You know, everybody was panicking, buying the toilet paper. We're at the retreat, we're not buying any toilet paper, right? Everybody was clearing the shelves at the grocery store. We're just working with the energy every day, right? We're just working with prana every day. We're sitting down in meditation every day. We're walking, exercising in nature every day. We're talking, we're having conversation every day. You know, divine communication every day. So it was like we were living in a whole separate reality. And that was the longest time that I ever went without food and drink. So the longest time without solids and liquids, you know, just days in a row. When I left, I would just, when I felt a dip in my energy, usually a person would go out and get some food, like, oh, I feel weak, I need to get something, I need to eat, I feel weak. I would just put up my hands, Celeste. I just hold up my hands and I'll just do Qigong right there in the street, like right there on the sidewalk. And people are just honking their horns, they're driving by me, they're walking by me, you know, men, women, and children, dogs and cats, they're just looking at, who is this guy just standing in the sun? What is he doing? But I was so nourished, you know? And after, it only took 15 minutes, like 15 to 20 minutes, and I was ready to go. I was recharged. You know, my cell phone, it was back to 100, and I just kept walking. So when you're, you know, someone's asking themselves, well, how much of that is, you know, faith? How much of that is belief? How much of that is, you know, scientific? How much of that is real? How much of that is rational? You know, how much of that is grounded? How much of that is founded? You know, like how much of that is real? But you know how you feel, you know? So I can't say for anyone else, but yeah, definitely. You know, you start to see more clearly that whether it is the mind or not, this reality is a lot more malleable than we think. And it all depends on how we think. Because if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So that's what I started to discover. Yeah.
So through lived experience, basically choosing a different path, lived
Exactly.
experience of there's another path, another way.
Right.
You talked about when you were praying to God every day, you know, morning and night, and when eating, and something shifted and going to church and stuff. Are you saying that the main shift happened when you went to this retreat, or was it a little bit before?
It was way before that. You know, before that, I wasn't, you know, I stopped going to church back in college. This was in, because I graduated in 2015. So this was years before that. You know, this was years before that, maybe like 2012. Yeah. So before 2012, I was more so with my family. But yeah, even my family stopped going to church. They don't even go to church. Not all of them, but like my direct parents, uh, they don't as often as they used to take me every single week, you know? So yeah, it just definitely, you know, I always maintained that there was something, whatever we label it, that there was a higher power, even if I didn't call it God, even if I didn't call it, you know, source, the universe, just this energy, that something just watching over, you know, whether they're the angels in the outfield or the ancestors or the spirit guides, like something, because I wouldn't be here. There's too many things, like I'm sure you feel the same, and maybe somebody who's listening, they feel the same. Too much has happened for there not to be something. Even if it's not what we think it is, there's something. Because there's no way. There's no way Like there's no way. You know, the too many things could have just easily at the drop of a dime, and I'm not here anymore. You know, so easy. If something had just a millimeter, and I'm gone, right? Gone. And we're not having this conversation. But you know, I'm in this timeline, you're in this timeline. We're living in this reality here, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful. So it definitely has given me a lot of faith to know that I must be here for a reason. I must be here for a purpose because there's no way. There's no way, you know? Yeah.
So it was through lived experience of motivation. So maybe you stopped going to church, but there's still this, you're living your life and noticing that everything is, it's too coincidental or too miraculous for it to be, for there not to be something. So maybe it wasn't what you were practicing in church, but there's still something there, that energy there. So did you continue praying, or was it just a slow shift into like just daily presence, and that was your form of prayer? I'm curious of like, because the book, The Fame and Family, you're talking about like connecting with that unseen faith. And so I'm wondering your personal journey on that unseen faith of going from religion to currently, nourishing with the sun,
Yeah, you said it. You said it. You know, your life becomes the message. You know, your life becomes your prayer, your meditation, your practice, the methods, modalities, whatever, you know, that becomes like your your sadhana or your level of presence. When I was in Costa Rica, I came down with I don't know, some virus. I was in a hostel with like, I don't even want to say hundreds. I think that's understating it. It was like thousands of mosquitoes, thousands. I mean, we all had mosquito nets in that hostel. I was in Puerto Viejo in Costa Rica. There were thousands. I mean, everybody by their bunk beds. I was in bunk beds with like eight other people in this room. Everybody had the mosquito spray. They had the mosquito net. They had the rub. They had the spray, the rub, the everything. Like for these mosquitoes, they were swarming. There was no warning. They were just coming in like you would see them trying to get through the net, like they were trying to get, they knew that there was a vessel of blood and energy on the other side of this net. There's something, I gotta get there. Like, can I just get there? And they were just all night long, they were trying to get through that mosquito net at you. And I mean, Jesus, you know, I contracted something. I don't know what it was, but I don't know. This might be the first time I've said this on a live. I thought I was gonna die. I thought I was gonna die. Like people were coming down with things, and I was just about to leave San Jose. So I went from Puerto Viejo to San Jose to this Airbnb, and I was like scheduling my flight. One of my friends from Bali, and I'm so thankful for Instagram connecting me with all these people around the world, because one of my friends from Bali, she orchestrated for me to have a taxi in Costa Rica to take me to the airport. And I had to rush and do all these things. I had to take my COVID test, and I had to do this, just to get on the flight to get back to the States. And we had to do it right at the last minute. And my flight was just about to take off. And once again, everything happened in divine order. This was late, that was late, this was late, that was late, and I was still on time, you know? So there were like a couple of days right before I left that Airbnb in San Jose, I thought I was gonna die. And I wasn't telling anybody. I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell my friends, I didn't tell anybody. But you know what I did? I prayed. I prayed. I prayed. Right? That was what I did. And I'm telling you, I stopped eating. I wasn't eating anyway, but I stopped drinking. I took away everything. And I was just like, you know what? We're going to fast. We're going to last. right?
Is that
I'm
what your
gonna
prayers
fast.
sound like?
Huh?
Is that what your prayers sound like?
No, I mean, at that time, I just kind of felt like I'm not done. You know, there was like I was clutching my heart. I was like, no, this is not. This can't be it. Not here in this Airbnb, like this. Not like this. You know, like I'm not done. There's more for me to do. There's more people I want to, empower. Like there's more lives I want to affect. There's more things I want to do. Like the impact that I felt like I wanted to have on the world. I felt like this can't be it. Like I'm not done here. This is this it? Like is this where it happens? And just those questions start to get you going in a downward spiral. And you start to get more and more depressed and more saddened by the possibility of this being the end of your story. And when your body's going through something you don't know what it's going through, you almost wonder, like, I mean, it just kind of, you can sink into a state of hopelessness that is hard to pull yourself out of that state. So I had to have faith. I had to hold on to something higher because there was no other way to rewire my mind in that moment, to let go of just the panic and just the desperate clinging to life, you know? So I realized we can't take it for granted. And when my sickness left, when the illness left, when all of that left, it was like I felt like I was born again. Like I had a second chance at life, you know? And it was just like like a breath, just thank you. It gets you emotional just thinking about it. Like, thank you, like no matter what it takes, I'm not going to stop because I've been given another chance, like I don't care. I'm not going to stop because yet again, it's confirmation that you're here for a reason. And that it could have gone another way, So yeah, I can't give somebody that feeling, but it changes you. It changes you on a cellular level, but also a cellular level, and it just redirects you. You realize what's important, what's actually important. What's actually the priority? Is it these material things, or, or is it what should I be putting on the top of the totem pole? What should I actually be valuing that I haven't been valuing? So it just brings everything back into perspective. So shout out to Costa Rica, Pura vida for giving me that, Thank you, thank you for giving me that because I needed that. That was the kick I needed. Yo.
Thank you so much for sharing this backstory because it's a testament to higher power, creator, whatever you want to call it, whatever label, put religion aside, that they're there even amidst the chaos. Even when you're like it's about to just end all, like that energy is still there and you found yourself like, yes, your human side is panicking. Right. And doing human things like, okay, it's time to fast, like cut it out, it's time. And also your higher self is like, there's this trust that you instantly went to praying, and there's this like awareness of the presence of that energy. And I feel it's important just to note that it's there during chaos as well. Right. I feel like, at least with my personal experience, I've for some reason thought that maybe that higher power was not there when I was going through difficulty, like running through like, conditioning with religion and like being punished for XYZ, or, like there's some like rooted beliefs, limiting beliefs there. But it's like, no, higher power source energy is there even when the mosquitoes gotcha and gave you something, it almost sent you back home. Like it's still there, like through sickness and illness, like, and you found your flight, perfect timing, and boom, bomb, bam, boom, bomb, like, and here you are. There's that faith that is just precious. And I like that you could share a real life example, and thank you for sharing. Near death experiences are so interesting to me. Like there's a whole YouTube channel that's dedicated to near death experiences because they're so impactful. Like people have completely different like journeys in that aspect, but like, yeah, you're Costa Rica. I hadn't heard that. So thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Would you say that any mentors specifically showed you ways in order to have more faith, and like how did that connect to your writing journey? Like was there a mentor that you can name that specifically helped you have faith in your writing journey, of like, no, I can find my flow, or like the books, you know, when you have a difficult time, you're like, I don't know if I, yeah, you have doubts, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Are there mentors that helped you with your specific writing journey?
Yeah, not hands-on specifically, but they've helped me in ways to just inject you with enthusiasm for that purpose, to know that, hey, why not? Why not? Like everybody else is wondering, like, why? We all have a reason, an excuse. Why? Why do that? Why do this? Why take a leap? Why go out on a limb? Why trust in yourself? Why believe you can make it? Why, bet on yourself? Why not? Why not? You know, you've always lived this way. What else could there be? What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? So there was a lady, and her name is Katrina. Shout out to Katrina. Simply Raw Consciousness is her channel and her Instagram. And yeah, she told me, Celeste, she was like, Jerome, you're already on a roll, you know, keep going. Like, why stop now? And it was almost like I just needed somebody to say that. I don't know why in that moment. I just needed somebody to say, why stop now? I mean, you've done all this. What? Keep going. You know? Like, why not write 20, write 50, write 100? She said this. She said, don't stop. Just keep going. She said, you'll never exhaust what wants to come through you. If source energy wants to come through you, you will never exhaust what wants to come through you. Why stop there? So that was the push that I needed to just tap into my inner child, because like I've told you, I was writing short stories in high school years ago. Never published anything, never finished anything. I started a lot of things, didn't finish a lot of things. I would always start and stop, start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. This project then drop, this then drop, start and stop. Everything it was like a puzzle that I never finished. All these pieces just laying around the table, and I just never had that feeling of completion, like I completed something, like I took something from beginning to end. So I didn't really have a lot of confidence in myself when it came to doing something like that, to like actually completing something. And it was only in video games that I had that confidence, that I had that stick-to-itiveness, that there's nothing's gonna stop me. I don't care. I'll stay up all night long, right? I don't care how long it takes. I'm beating this level. I'm beating this boss, And the same goes for the mind, like just having that stick-to-itiveness and the gumption to say, you know what? I owe it to myself to see what happens when I don't give up on myself. I owe it to me. What happens when I don't give up, when I don't give in, when I don't quit? What happens when I keep going? Let's see what happens. So that was the encouragement and the empowerment that she gave me, just from those few words. And sometimes it's not what somebody says, it's how they say it that just wakes you up and gets you going, So that's where it started. So shout out to Katrina. She was definitely a mentor for me in that capacity.
Shout out to Katrina.
Yeah.
Straight up. What would you say, because you mentioned in Fame and Famine that the main character found a mentor of sorts. What would you say that message, what was the message that she received from her mentor that helped her keep going?
Yeah, she receives a few mentors, actually. One of them is a mentor in the forest, a woodlander, who is speaking in like very, very broken English. Like she's very tribal, she's very primal. Like she's almost like primitive. Like she's not speaking like the villagers or speaking like the people in the church. She's not civilized at all. She's been raised in the forest, like raised around, these critters and creatures and trees and plants and leaves, and like she's raised in there. And she's learned the language of the forest. And she speaks with nature. And I got this inspiration from one of my friends. Her name is Sarah. This character in Feminine Flame, her name is Silva. So Sarah is an actual woodlander in real life. I don't know anybody else, Celeste. I don't know anybody else in real life like my friend Sarah out there in the UK. We were traveling Italy together, and then we made it all the way to France together. We started in Pisa, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We started there, and then we made it together all the way to France. And we also were with each other in Kokore at the Pranic World Festival. I don't know anybody else like this lady. She can live in the forest. Like no tent, no shelter. She can live in the forest. And I mean the stuff that she would do, it was like you're watching. I mean, I can't really describe just even the way that she would drink juice. It was like it was very, there was nothing that was civilized. Like she can live in the forest, you know? So, I mean, she had so many guides in spirit, just these beings that would assist her because she went through paralysis, like her whole body numb. And she was carrying all sorts of stuff on her back. We were walking long distances together. And she had these spirit totems, like these spirit animals and these spirit things that she would tap into to keep her going, like to sustain her and maintain her on our journey. And I'm like, whoa, like you're tapping into all of that. So in Feminine Flame, that character, Silva, she's teaching that to Sarah. So she's that mentor, letting her know that there's more to reality than she knew before. And how to listen to the forest, how to hear what it's talking about, and how to work with it instead of against it, how to work with nature instead of going against nature. And you see what happens to the other characters who go against nature. You see what happens to them. So that's one of the characters. And then one of the nuns at the convent, definitely, they were a character, a central role for Tessara in teaching her the power of her voice. So Feminine Flame has a whole section in that book just on the throat chakra, unleashing the throat chakra, the power of your voice, and how we can speak things into existence. How our words are weapons. They're like wands. They're not just like wishes and wants. They're like weapons and wands. Like your word is a magic wand and it can take you beyond. So she becomes like a fish out of the pond in this other environment, but she's using her voice to her benefit. So people who don't really understand their power of the throat chakra, they can definitely become affected and impacted by her mastery over her vocal cord. And so I enjoyed that piece as well. So yeah, different mentors for sure. Everyone, and I view that with everyone, with like all the hundreds of interviews and conversations, I learned something from everyone. Everyone has something to teach you. There's something that someone knows that you don't know. And when you look at life like that, when you look at people like that, everyone is your teacher. From the youngest to the eldest, we can learn. So really, they're all mentors.
I love too how you use your personal life experience and kind of sprinkle it in with these characters,
Yeah.
and what they learn, what she learned specifically in Feminine Fame, and meeting your forest friend too, and like figuring out a way to creatively express that and weave it into the story. It's amazing. It's inspiring. Yeah.
I'll send you her page after this. I'll send it to she speaks light language.
Yeah,
She speaks light language. Yeah, yeah. She speaks another language. Yeah.
amazing. I'm like pumped about this book specifically. Like we would dove in deep into famine and flame, and now I'm like talking about faith and mentors and what they're teaching her and stuff and how to apply it. And I'm curious what the main themes were for Ashes and Air. Whether it was there a transition to each one of them, or is it completely different? You said this one was a historical nonfiction, and the
Yeah.
previous one was a Greek tragedy. So how about Ashes and Air? What was that main theme for that one?
Yeah. You know, the barren breatharian, ashes and air. So the barren breatharian, think of just wasteland, complete apocalyptic, not just dystopian, like apocalyptic. Things have gone down in society and things have just crashed. Like think, just like a nuclear bomb, and everybody's living in this environment that is completely changed. So complete wasteland. We're talking Mad Max. Mad Max, people are just scavenging for resources, trying to get whatever they can, whether it's a chocolate bar, or a box of Oreos or something that they can grab from somebody's house that's been abandoned, because there's all sorts of stuff going on. So there's scavengers, there's raiders, there's invaders, there's people that don't have the best intentions. And society has kind of gone back and reverted to survival of the fittest, you know, last man standing. And there's tribal qualities. People are tribing up with different people, and consumption has gone to another level because now you have scarcity. There's not a lot of food. So with that element, it's a sinister element in that book. It kind of takes it to a level where you're witnessing a part of humanity that we don't think could be possible. We wonder, but we go there in that book. So yeah, we're talking about, you know, what will you do if you think that you need something to survive and all you see is the tribe and you have nothing else to keep you alive, what do you do? So that book goes into what people start doing and what they start chewing in that book. So that definitely got into some dark elements, but Samara is the light in that book. So every book has darkness, but they also have the light. They have the yin and the yang, the right and the wrong, right? The yin and the yang, there's balance. And it gives some allowance for people to understand, hey, this might not be for children. That book is not for children. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend children read that book. But I had to go there because yeah, we needed to grow there. Yeah.
Mm, I like that. Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, heads
Children,
up. Heads
yeah,
up.
yep,
Just be warned. Be warned. It's graphic.
yeah.
Graphic.
But that's
Yeah.
the truth, the light and the dark. I like that you highlighted that in each of the
Yeah.
books. That's truth, and coming to acceptance of that. Like you said, it balances out.
Yeah. So in Ashes and Air, there's a tribe called the Bloodbound. I'll let you guess what that tribe does. Then there's like a compound where there's the Baron. He's the king of the compound, and he's got this whole arena like a gladiator arena, and there's spectacle and there's sport and there's entertainment, and people are doing all of this stuff once again for pleasure, but they're just instead of exchanging actual money, because money doesn't mean anything in the wasteland. It's like food, scraps, just the leftovers. And then beyond that, there's a scientist laboratory, and they're experimenting and trying to transcend hunger through scientific means, through experimentation. And they're in that vibration. So they have test subjects, unwilling, involuntary, people who are being experimented on, trying to test out and be the salvation of humanity. But what they don't know is that we can already transcend it once we realize who we are and what we are, you know? So Samara is there in that book to remind us who we are. Yeah.
Through the
There
contrast.
you go. There you go.
Is Samara
So,
one of the characters that was involuntarily chosen for that path?
well,
Giving away too much.
nah. So she comes from a place that links to another book, so it's all connected. It's all connected. But she's learned something that human beings have forgotten, and she's come back to remind them. And she needs to get to a sanctuary. It's called the Sanctuary of Stillness, to get something there that will enlighten and illuminate the darkness, you know, to let people know, hey, there's another way. You know, we don't have to, this doesn't have to be the end of us or the great fall of humanity. We can rise again. So she's there to help us rise again. Yeah. And yeah, that one was fun. That was fun to write for sure.
Just in these three books, the Breatharian books, I haven't read them yet, but it sounds like there's a progression. It's like the first one, the Breatharian at the Banquet, is like the basics of like recognizing your patterns and the overindulgence and the risks that come with that, etc., and watching it from a side. And then the next one is kind of a journey through, like you said, the forest and more like self-exploration and finding your power in a sense with, I forgot her, Oren? No, I forgot the main character's name. What was the main character's name?
Tessara in Feminine Flame.
Yes, yes.
She's more so, you know, she's very, very different. She's outcast. She's been ostracized. She's the one over there. Like, get thee gone. Get thee away from me, you know? She's been labeled as a witch, as a heretic, as a blasphemer, you know, a blasphemer. Like, she's been labeled as, this is devilry, this is satanic, this is sorcery. So she has to go from outcast, from being ostracized from, you know, the village, and, you know, they just leave her for dead, and then she has a journey ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's almost reaching out into the community aspect. So,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going based off what you were sharing with me with these three books. The first one, it seems more of like your own relationship with food and talking about it with community. And the next one was being ostracized for choosing a different path and working through that, like in the bigger perspective with the community. And the last one seems like the collective, like apocalyptic, like what happens, you know what I mean, when the collective is maybe going too far in the overindulgence. I don't know. We have yet to see, but that's my understanding. That seems like the progression with three books.
You got it.
Yeah.
You nailed it. Yeah.
I'm excited to read them. Like, this is exciting. Your last one, the 48 Laws of Prana, that seems like a completely different path. Can you go into what that book is? I know that it's inspired by one of your favorite authors, Robert Greene, the 48 Laws of Power. So can you go into the 48 Laws of Prana and how that book was for writing compared to writing the nonfiction books?
Yeah, you know, thank you for that question, because a lot of books that I've written have been inspired. You know, everything has kind of been an inspiration. It really has, off of something else. Like even this book that I'm writing right now, you know, the Breatharian who sold his Bugatti, that's based on one of my favorite books by Robin Sharma, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, right? So that book changed my whole life. At one point, that was my top book. It might still be up there, definitely in my top 3, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. So I was like, you know, I was sitting in meditation one day and I was like, I got it, you know? And it just, that was it. I was like, yes. And it just kind of like paying homage. So in paying homage, but also being in service and being on purpose with the pranic message, you know, just the pranic wavelength or the breatharian bandwidth, You know, what one might talk about with the 48 laws is just things that we can look like. People are looking for, what are the guidelines? What can I do? You know, are there any rules to this? By the end, I let you know, hey, there's really no rules, you know, but these are some tools, you know, like there's really no rules, but these are some tools. So the 48 laws are just 48 principles and these things that are kind of giving you something like to read over and over and over again, over and over. Like Robert Greene, there's books from Robert Greene, Celeste, I read over and over and over. And I'm telling you, it just came out in the most amazing ways in my life. And I can just connect the dots all the way back to that book. So I was like, what if there was a book like that, but with the pranic living message, with the breatharian message, with the message of not needing, you know, the message that you are more than enough, you are self-sustained, you are self-sufficient, you are autonomous. You have all that you need, an abundance of chi, and how to tap into that awareness. So that's what this book is. You know, 48 Laws of Prana is just really giving you so many things to be inspired by. And it takes influence, it takes inspiration from all sorts of scriptures, from all sorts of people, from all sorts of sages throughout the ages, within the pages. All sorts of you know, just the, you know, those ascended masters that we think about, the gurus that we think about, the guides that we think about, like all the people that did something amazing and had their energy raising on a level. I put stories and anecdotes and things in that book to let you know, hey, here's somebody else that tapped in. Here's another human being that tapped in. Here's another, you're not alone, right? You're standing on the shoulders of giants and you can see even further because it's been done. Someone has already done it. What a time to be alive, right? It's already been done. Before you were born, it was already done. So it's like, wow, you know, I've already won because it's already done. Letting people know it's already done. Yeah, that's the purpose of this book, to let people know it's possible. That's really all I wanted to do when I started talking about this topic. Not to just make people or change people or rearrange people, but to at least let them know it's possible. Mm-hmm. At least you know now it's possible. Like, do I have to stop eating? No, but at least you know it's possible. Do I have to stop drinking? No, but at least you know you can do it, right? The option is there. So we're a lot more aware when the option is there.
It's empowering to know that you have options,
yeah,
and that you have choice. So you're just giving people way more options. Hey, you get to choose. I love that you're like, no, it's just a tool.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What would you say your top two tools, two laws from the 48 Laws of Prana that you would say are really impacting you in your daily life right now, or maybe were your favorite to write about?
Yeah. You know, definitely one of them was law number 11, realize you're in heaven. Yeah, the law number 11, realize you're in heaven. That's just like the understanding that, hey, you know, for every bad thing that you see going on, or for every negative thing you hear about in the news or something, I operate, there's 100 things, 100 good things, 100 positive things, 100 bright things that are happening that nobody hears about. Nobody knows. It's pushed on us that everything is negative, that all of this bad, these atrocities, these catastrophes, these incidents of just random acts of violence. But what about random acts of kindness? Right? They happen all the time. But we don't, you know, we don't think about those. We think more about the negative than the positive. So law number 11, realize you're in heaven. Like, realize where you are. This earth, when you start to travel this world, is beautiful. Beautiful. When I was in Costa Rica on La Playa Negra, I had never walked on a black sand beach. Can you imagine a beach with black sand? A beach with black, it was black. I couldn't have even imagined that. And it's right there. It's called La Playa Negra. It's here in the world, and you can walk it. And the water is so clear, you can see to the bottom. It's crystal clear. And I went there and I was like, what? And the air was different. Everything was different. It was like this exists. So it was just expanding me, like letting me know, hey, it's not all like you think, you know? When you're still stuck in that cubicle, you're stuck in that box. You're living that sedentary life, like you're just like a rock, right? But when you step out, Morpheus offered Neo the two options. Hey, you can take the blue pill. You can stay here if you want to, right? Or you can take the red pill, and you can see how far the rabbit hole goes. You can see how deep it goes. But hey, I'm not gonna judge. If you take the blue pill, it's okay. On to the next, right? I'm just here to let you know it's an option. And we know how the story went, right? He took the red pill and he became the one that he always was. He was a seeker. He knew that this was not it. He knew that this life he was living and all that was giving was, this isn't it. This is just what I know now. But there's more. And then there was other people that saw that he knew there was more. So they invited him to explore and see more. So when I noticed that, realize you're in heaven is just understanding like, hey, it's perspective. First time I went to California, people told me, hey, you'll get robbed out there. You'll get mugged out there. You'll get taken advantage of out there. They're superficial out there. They're just egotistic out there, right? You don't want to go out there. Don't go to Los Angeles. Don't go to LA. I went to LA. Who did I meet in LA? Da-da-da, right? I met Celeste. And I mean, what if I had listened to everybody who told me it was a bad idea? We would have never met each other, you know? So if I had listened to their perspective, never let someone's lack of imagination limit your imagination. That's the message. So that's just one of the tools in that book, you know? So a lot of it is mental. Yeah, it's just the way that we see things. And it's not what we look at that matters, it's what we see. And everybody sees something different. Yeah.
What would you say to the person in the cubicle that maybe doesn't have the funds to travel and is lost in seeing the chaos around them and suffering with it? Like, how do they see heaven on earth without like physically leaving that space?
Right. Great question. In this day and age, now we're talking in this technology age, in this information age, if you have a cell phone, if you're listening to this, that means you have a device. So if you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this right now, that means you have some form of device, like some form of, you know, technology. This same technology is the same technology that I used to break myself out by looking at different things, by consuming different information, by digesting different food. Information is food, and food is information. So the two go hand in hand. What are we digesting? Right? All of this stressing, life is depressing, but I never connected what I was digesting. What is the information that is coming in to the vessel? Right? Why I think I need to struggle and always wrestle with life. Why I think things have to be hard. It can't be easy. Why can't it just be easy? Why does it have to be hard? Right? It was my mind. So it was people that I was hanging around in my environment, but it's also the information that I was consuming on the daily that was showing me a world that was disparaging, showing me a world that was not optimistic. So I had to go to books like Norman Vincent Peale, right? Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. Brian Tracy, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life, right? Joseph Murphy, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, right? Dr. Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics, right? All of these people started to break me up and wake me up and shake me up out of that funk and let go of the junk, right? Like get that out of there. You know, when you have a cup of water and you just drop some red dye, it's the whole water turns red. But if you just continue to add water, add good water, it filters it out. So I was consuming different information that was filtering out all the filth in my mind. And it was all by design. So it just took some time. Yeah. But you realign to the divine when you take that time.
Hmm. If you're living in hell and you want to be living in heaven, it's a perspective shift, and it helps to change what you're ingesting. Even if you can't change your physical environment, you can change what you're ingesting in that physical environment.
Yes, because it will change. I'm telling you, things will change. When you worry about what goes in here and you stop worrying about the external and you worry about the internal, the external changes.
Mm-hmm.
The external rearranges because it has to compensate. It has to. Water always seeks its level. It seeks its own level. It has to level out. We don't, it's like even Navy SEALs, people who have gone through this intensive training. Navy SEALs, they have a saying like, you never rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training.
Mm.
What you have prepared for, right? Gladiators, when you sweat more in the training, you will bleed less on the battlefield, right? Because you've put in so much work on the mind that when something happens, you redefine. So for me, I focus more on what I put into my body, what I put into my mind. And then when things eventually did change, because they will change, I was ready. I was ready. I was ready to see the opportunity. I was ready to create the circumstance. I was ready to make things happen, right? Because I had the mind to support it. When you don't have the the consciousness, when you don't have the psychology to support this new life that you desire, how can we go higher? We don't have the mind to support what we desire. So it's focusing more on like the mental food, the mental stimulation within the simulation. We're in the matrix, yeah, but you can choose. There's one thing that nobody can force you. Like, I may not be able to have control over everything, but I can control what I put in my body, right? And it doesn't just go for, physical, but mental. There's an algorithm, right? There's an algorithm. Everything that you like, everything that you click, it's going to continue feeding you that information. But if you start liking and clicking and consciously sticking with the information that's more optimistic, that's more on the other side of the spectrum, because there's polarity, it's going to slowly guide you to that polarity. And then sooner or later, things change. And it might be later than you want, but most likely it's sooner than you think.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's like the testament to having faith in that process.
Right.
what I'm hearing through our conversation, the important parts of it are what you consume,
Yep.
uh, faith in something larger than you, and allowing support through mentorship when
Absolutely.
being a student.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the 48 Laws of Prana are little like golden nuggets that kind of teach that to you in different ways, different
Yeah.
forms, like
Yeah.
heaven on earth. That's um, simple, yet can be complex because we just spent so much time digging into it and sifting. It depends on each person where they're at in their life, but also it's like just perspective shift. No matter where they are in the physical environment, no matter where they are in their own hell of their mind, it's like the perspective shift
Right.
and having
Right.
like that faith in something larger, that it can be better, it can be lighter, this dream life can be for me.
Right. Right.
I'm
Yeah.
ex- I'm excited to read this. The 48 Laws of Prana like sounds like golden nuggets. Like just one a day. Just commit 50 days. Let's keep it even 50 days, one a day.
I love this. Everyone's been saying so much, so many loving things while we've been speaking. I love, just shout out to everyone who's been watching. Appreciate you. Just wanted to send my love and just say thank you for tuning in just while we've been talking here.
Yeah,
Yeah. And thank you, Celeste, because I love how you take everything and you distill it into just the fundamental, the value. Like you just take everything and you're just like, this is it. You're like the juicer. You're juicing it. You're taking out all the fiber, right? You're juicing it down to the essential. I love the way that you do that so effortlessly. You know.
appreciate you. You provide a plethora of fruit to make so many different types of juices. I'm like, ooh, yeah, let's do this one today. Ooh, let's do that one today. Let's do that one. It's like, oh man, I do interviews all day, every day. Like,
But yeah, that's a message, that's a really important message, like you said, just for people who feel like they're stuck or they feel like they're down on their luck and they don't have any mentors around them. I mean, you don't have to have a physical person to be your mentor. Those books that I mentioned, those were my mentors. Those
mm,
were my mentors.
mm,
Norman Vincent Peale, that was a mentor, right? Maxwell Maltz, that was a mentor. James Clear, that was a mentor, you know? Tony Robbins, that was my mentor. I didn't have to physically be in contact. I didn't have to pay these people thousands of dollars to have a mentorship program to have a mentor. That they can be your mentor. Even somebody who's no longer here can be your mentor. And now with the wave of the internet, with YouTube and all these people just putting out so much wonderful content on just changing people's lives, there's 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 no shortage of mentors. Yeah.
thank you for that reminder, because I feel like we're in this day of age where there's a course for this, a mentorship for that, a program for this, and it's really easy to be like, wow, like overstimulated in a sense, and you want to do all the things, and back to the simple basics. It's
Right.
like, yes, even people that have passed away, they're still teaching us, and we
Yeah.
can learn through books and even like summaries, even type it in anywhere on the internet. You can read just quotes from that book if you want. It can be that simple. So, and I know, Jerome, that you're mentoring people with these books that you're writing, like that you will be mentoring them for years to come, like seriously. Yeah. Do you want to give anybody a sneak peek before we end here about the book that you're currently writing, what that any exciting little hints?
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh man, I've been up these days. I've just hardly been able to sleep while I'm writing. So, this book here, The Breatharian Who Sold His Bugatti, oh man, there's so many elements, but this one, like we were talking about, the different ones have different themes. This one is more on letting go, like more on somebody who amasses to the heights. His name is Damian West. And when you're a West, you're the best, right? Nothing less when you're a West, right? So he's like upper echelon, high class, high society, but also, he's a billionaire. He's like in the billions, all these transactions, just completely just wealth magnet, mogul, tech mogul, and he's in this industry and he's amassed such fortune that he almost doesn't know what to do with it all. And it's for his father's approval. There's so much about approval and status and wealth and fame and celebrity and, you know, just all of these lessons. But his health is being sacrificed. His wealth is increasing. His health is decreasing. And he comes to a point where no matter how much money he has, it doesn't matter, right? Really doesn't matter, you know? They say that a healthy person has 1,000 wishes and a sick person has only one, just one, right? Like if I'm sure with all the money that, you know, the multimillionaires and billionaires have, if they're on their deathbed, I'm pretty sure there's no amount that they would not sacrifice to get their health back again. So he gets to that point because he's just driving. He's just got this insane, insatiable hunger and drive for achievement and accomplishment. And he's just going, going, going. But his energy's not flowing as he's going, going, going. And there are different mentors and guides and teachers throughout this book that they have a few words for him. And he doesn't heed those words. He thinks he doesn't need those words. But when it hits the fan, it hits. And he has to learn how to sit. He has to learn how to slow things down. Like, right? You sure? Right, there you go. He has to learn how to slow that thing down. Whoa, no, hold up. Right? Whoa, Nelly. Slow down. So yeah. That one is it's been really fun to work on because I'm including a lot of mysticism as well. Not just, you know, your modern day materialism, but lessons on detachment, on mindfulness. I draw so many influences from actually meeting monks and nuns from Myanmar. Like, that's my story. That's who I came across when I went to California. And the series of events that allowed me to be amongst these beings, these light beings that taught me, I include them all in this book here. And yeah, these are the people that end up teaching him things that he never could have learned in the field that he was in. Yeah.
It sounds like the underlying question really is, what are you hungry for?
Yeah. And what would you sacrifice? You know? Like, what would you let go to have even more flow? To like, what is the primary importance? Circling back to what I was telling you about with me in Costa Rica, what I came up against, you know, realizing what should I be putting up here. Yeah. So he has to find that out, but it's a rude awakening for sure.
Sometimes those are the ones that get us really to open, you know, from our tunnel vision. If it's like tunnel visioning to money, 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 and then you keep tunnel visioning, the universe is like, hey, what about this tunnel bit? But you're still like this. Then it's the universe is like, all right, what do I need to do to move these, to open them? And the more you resist it, I feel like the more intense the awakening will be. And then eventually it's like, oh, okay, my health, got it, my health.
Yeah.
Let go, let go.
Let go. Let go. Yeah. So I'm excited for you to actually read this one most of all, really, because there's even in this one and in another one, but this one in particular, there's lessons in Vipassana that we did together. So I'm excited for you to read this one in particular. Yeah.
Super excited.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jerome.
Thank you. Thank you for all these questions. You know, thank you for your curiosity. Thank you for just your inquisitiveness, your love of learning, and your ability to ask these questions that actually allow me to learn more about myself. So I appreciate you.
appreciate you sharing the backstory of your creative process and each book. They're so important and impactful for everyone to hear. And I feel like you interview so many people, you know, about their experiences and stuff. And it's like, what's Jerome doing? Like Jerome's got he's creating universes, you know. So I thank you so much for sharing. Like it's I'm excited to continue on this journey with every, you know, set of books that you write, whatnot. And yeah, this book in particular, I know that you're going hard right now.
You know.
I know it. I know it. So I'm hoping, you know, this little reflection gives you a little extra juice, some inspiration, some loves, and keep on keeping, man. It's truly inspiring. It really is by you just being. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. Much love.
Thank you everybody for joining. All of Jerome's books available on Amazon.com. We'll see you next time.
Take care.